Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to SA Boxing Talk. I have an international guest today, Sena Agbeko, all the way from Ghana, but now boxing out of the USA. Sena, thank you very much for coming on the channel and having a chat with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Hayden.
It's an absolute pleasure, and you've been ripping it up in the super middleweight division. You've got people from all over the world taking note of you right now. You're beating the upcoming guys in the USA. How difficult is it to make a name that side? I just want to go there first.
I mean, the U.S., coming from outside of the USA, I imagine it would be difficult for anybody. It took me a while to adapt. Obviously, if you've looked at my record, I lost my first fight here. And it was more like, the stakes are a lot higher here. The lights are a little brighter. And if you're not mentally ready, it can really mess you up. So it's more of a mental game here. But then also, the training and the technique coming from where I came from, Ghana and Africa, I wouldn't say we're necessarily lacking, but we do need a little bit of a catching up. It's not just enough to be physically fit, to have the stamina, to have the endurance. You need to have a little more. So after that loss, I didn't fight for 4 years. And during that period, there was a lot of training. I was training harder than people who had fights coming up. So it wasn't just really just conditioning. It was a lot of learning, skills and techniques. And I fully immersed myself into the American way. And I got to work with different multiple diverse styles. So I can say that I'm capable of fighting, multiple styles. And I also know at the moment how to really deal with a lot of different styles. So yeah.
So, I mean, I noticed that over the years, you doing interviews and, doing stuff with American journalists, that you popped up in the Mayweather gym as well. And I'm sure you would have got a lot of work there and a lot of rivalries. I know that all guys from all over the country come and try spar there at the very least. So do you have any big names that you've come into contact with regards to sparring?
I have met pretty much, a lot of people. Being there, though, I've sparred. The biggest name that I would say I sparred at the Mayweather boxing gym was Badu Jack. And he's even above my division. I've worked with him a couple times there. I also worked with Andrew Tabiti, who's a cruiserweight. And then a lot of the other up and comers. Kevin Newman. He's also somebody that I have a lot of respect for. He's still out there in the same division as me. And Linnell Bellows, just a bunch of former signees to the Mayweather boxing promotion. So there's also another aspect to being at the Mayweather boxing. It's not just about the quality of sparring you get over there. It's about the atmosphere. It's very electric. It's almost fight-like. There's a lot of emotion, and it drives, the sessions. So I feel like it's a great way to prepare for fight night, because that's one thing a lot of fighters don't take into account. They train in the gym, and then a lot of the sparring is in a really controlled environment. So you don't deal with all these emotions and how they affect how you fight. But at the middle of the boxing gym, it's always electric. And every punch, that lands, you hear people go, ooh, ah, it's the same as fight night. So that is like a rehearsal for fight night. And I feel like that's an advantage that people who train and spar at Mayweather Boxing Gym go into fights with.
Do you find yourself, particularly now when you're fighting all these upcoming prospects and also great fighters in their own rights, do you find yourself being the A team or the B team in these fights?
Well, at the moment, I haven't really been signed to a major promotion since the entirety of my career. So I find myself having been the B side a lot more times than not, especially in the bigger fights, and that's okay. I understand that somebody has to be the B side. Every champion was once a challenger, was once a contender,
right?
Or at least they had to fight for the vacant belt. So I'm well aware of that. But I don't go into that. I don't go into fights with the mindset of, hey, I'm a lesser guy than the A guy. No, it's a mindset of I'm the champion, right? I want to be the guy that everybody wants to come at, because I'm not doing this just to do it. No, I want to be the guy that everybody, like Canelo right now. Everybody wants to fight Canelo. Everybody wants to come at Canelo. So I want to be that guy. I'm ready to put in the work to have that target on my back so people can come at me. And I've been doing the work. So when I go into the ring, even though the other guy may have the belt or may have, the odds in their favor, I'm like, hey, mentally, I think they have to take it from me, and that's what I go into the fight with. Yeah.
I wanted to get your thoughts as well on. I had a quick peeking at the ratings, and I see that you're not in the top sanctioning bodies at the moment, but you are highly rated when it comes up to the guys you're fighting. Are you shocked that you're not there?
Well, they put me in the WBC rankings because I won the WBC USA Super Middleweight belt. Initially, I was at 23, and then
Okay.
I was, of course, put in the top 15. So I was right on the, right on the edge. But then recently, I believe Demetrius Andrade was also introduced into the super middleweight division, and then he was introduced. I forget his position in the ranking, sixth. So I believe that pushed me out to 16. So I'm currently ranked with the WBC, but I think that it shouldn't be long before something good happens. I understand boxing is very political. Like most things in life, a lot of things are backed by money and influence and the people that are behind you. And I have had to do it the hard way. Like the promoter who put on the last show, Salida, Dimitri Salida, he knows. I fought one of his guys in the past, Vladimir Shishkin, so he knows my story very well. And he put on the last show that I won in Atlantic City, and I feel like he generally wants to help me as well at this point because he's starting to realize the effort that I'm putting in, and I think that I don't want any handouts. I'm willing to put in the work. I'm willing to show up on the stage and earn it. And I'm not getting any younger, so I'm ready to take on the biggest names there are out there.
So, like straight after that last fight, I also caught another clip of Teddy Atlas giving you a great speech there as well, and I saw how appreciative you were. How much does that speech mean to you, even looking back to it today?
I mean, like for me, again, like I said, it was the biggest win. It's been the biggest win of my career so far. Although, of course, I had to win that fight to get that win from Teddy Atlas. Now, of course, people just saw the speech, but this is the backstory, and this is why Teddy Atlas said what he said. So when I came to the U.S., right, and then in that Boxino tournament, my first fight, I lost that fight, and for years I couldn't watch the fight while listening to the commentary because it was Teddy Atlas who was running the commentary that night, and he was vicious. He said the worst things that he could say about anybody. Like I had it seemed like I just fought cab drivers. I had zero skills. I don't belong on the stage. Like a lot of things that would ordinarily and they did hurt me. Like I wouldn't say they would ordinarily hurt anybody. They would hurt anybody, but it just I knew that I was better than my performance that night, and I knew that I lost not to a better man, but to my own inner demons, my anxiety. Just the glare of the bright lights that night. Being in America for the first time, and I knew that I was better than that. And from that point on, my goal was to prove to Teddy Atlas that I wasn't the person that he described in his commentary that night. So funny thing is, I envisioned everything the way it happened that night. I literally envisioned it in my mind. And so it was his son who was really like running the organization of the show that night or that whole weekend, right? So I saw him, and then he came to my hotel room, and then we spoke, and then I was like, hey, yes, your father come in here. I would really love if he was at ringside. And I gave him a brief, history. And then he was like, yeah, actually, my father's going to be here tomorrow. He's going to be at ringside. And I was like, oh my God, this is like happening. So come fight night, no, like not to lie, I completely forgot about Teddy at that point. I didn't even notice him ringside or anything. At that point, my focus was on my opponent. So after taking care of business, I was conducting an interview. And then, off to the distance, I saw Teddy. I just cut the interview short, walked up to him, and I just greeted him, and then he deals with a million people, so he probably didn't remember, that night. But I just, reminded him, told him everything that happened that night. He remembered the boxing tournament, and I think at that point he remembered me. So the things that he said were really just like to let me know that most people would have taken that analysis or criticism harshly, and it would have either like they would have either not accepted it and just like fallen back into whatever place they came from, or would just have been blind to it and not just made any corrections or any like any adjustments to be better. And he was like, to take it the way I took it and to seek to strive to be better, and then prove to him that no, I was better than I showed that night. It meant a lot, and it was really almost a 10-year journey to do that. Yeah, you understand. So for me, it was one of my goals alongside aside being becoming a world champion, to do that. It would have been perfect. That the ideal situation would have been to win a world championship with him by ringside for the first time, after that fight. But that was just as satisfying, and I'm still on the path to winning that world championship glory. And I'm sure this will come up again in the future. The situation with Teddy, and he's a great man. He's somebody that I highly respected, and still, of course, still respect. But it's just
Yeah.
at the time, I was just gutted that, oh my God, such an influential and respected boxing icon thinks this of me. I have to change this. And my goal from that point on was to work relentlessly. And when I tell you that I worked harder than people who were getting ready for championship fights, I really did. Yeah.
Man, I mean, I could just imagine the drive, especially like being outside of, I don't know if it's outside of your comfort zone, but I suppose at the time when you first entered and you first went into that tournament, it must have been quite difficult. And you said took 4 years off as well. So, I mean, that was quite devastating. But you managed to get back on your feet again. And what you've done since then has been quite remarkable. I mean, just going back and, dissecting your record and the guys that you have on your resume, it hasn't been easy fights. It hasn't been like a padded record or anything like that. It's just been coming up against legitimate guys that, are up there and also wanting to become world champions. That was the profile that you built for yourself. And, looking forward now and moving on from those guys that you've already beaten because you put those guys behind you, who are you looking at in the immediate future? Because obviously I know you mentioned like your Canelo Alvarez's, but that's sort of like an aspirational fight. Who do you see in your near future on your radar?
I mean, you're right about that. Realistically, no one's like everyone's gonna go like, oh, who's Senna? What has he done to earn a shot at Canelo? So obviously, so here's the thing. As of last year, I was ranked 212th in the world, 212th on BoxRec, and I looked at a long list of the names in front of me, and I was like, God, this is like ridiculous. I know I'm so much better, and a lot of them I had sparred, and I knew I was so much better than a lot of them. So I was like, okay, what can we do to change this? So we looked at things from a political standpoint. It's all about the money. It's all about getting ranked in a sanctioning body commission. So I found a manager who was willing to put the money in me, luckily, who invested in me. And we made offers to like, guys, like you said, my three recent fights have been at guys with like stacked records. Like they have, impressive resumes, former world title challenges, young and up and coming prospects. And we took that risk, believing in myself, and we got that job done. And we got the belt that we needed to get us ranked and everything. So I feel like right now, to be considered to fight somebody like Canelo, I would need to fight, some of the regular champions or the mandatory, the interim champions or the regular champions. So we're looking at, when you look at the WBA, we're talking Morrell. And speaking of Morrell, I watched an interview where his coach actually said that they were going to try to negotiate a fight for to be the co-feature of the Caleb versus Benavidez fight card, but I don't know what happened, and it just kind of fell through. I was contested initially, but that was at the end of last year, and then talks fell down. So I'm expecting something in that direction soon. I would have expected to fight somebody like Zach not John Ryder, yeah, but he has the
Yeah.
Canelo fight now, so he's out of the question. And then we're looking at someone like Benavidez, who's currently going to fight Caleb. So I mean, those are the kind of guys that I'm looking to test myself. For a lot of people, it might seem like a big jump, but a lot of fans don't understand that a lot of these guys we interact with on a daily level. Like we know what they're
Mhm.
capable of. You understand? So I feel like I'm a I'm pretty reasonable and very level headed, and I know what I'm capable of, and I know where I'm at, and it's up to me to believe in what I'm capable of. I don't care what the average fan who doesn't know what I do, like, even sometimes I question the odd makers. I'm like, hey, you're not there to watch me wake up and run. You don't know what I eat. You don't know
Mhm.
what I do to get ready for these fights. And my last two fights, I was always the underdog. My last fight that I won, I was a plus 330 underdog. So yeah, and what happened? I, it's any of those guys in the top 10 of any of the sanctioning bodies that I'm looking for. So like I've said, I've already called out Caleb Plant, but immediately after calling him out, he jumped on that Benavides fight. So that's kind of out of the question short term. But I am definitely still, looking for the Morrell fight now because I think that they brought my name up, and it's a fight that I know Morrell is a hell of a great fighter, but again, like I said, I want to be the guy with the target on his back, the guy that everybody wants to fight. So there's only one way to find out: get in the ring, make it happen.
And I feel like all you need is that one opportunity. You got to train harder than the guy. You got to be more mentally prepared. And you're getting in there. You both got fists. You both want something. So it's just a matter of who wants it more on the night. And obviously, you have your own skill sets. He has his own skill sets. So there's always an opportunity for you. And as I said, you've been beating all the guys that are upcoming on the scene, guys that have names already. So it's not like you can't handle that. It's just about getting your opportunity at this stage. Is there anything at the moment that your management team is working on getting you a fight, or are you waiting on something?
So as of now, we're definitely waiting on something because, like I said, the Morale fight was at first it was rumored to be offered to me to be on the Benavides Caleb card, which is upcoming here in Las Vegas on March 25th, and that didn't happen. So right now, we believe that it's probably going to happen April 22nd on the undercard of the Ryan Garcia Tank card, but
Okay.
there's nothing concrete yet. You understand? But I'm still training hard and I'm waiting. So if that offer gets made and it gets finalized, then of course that'll be my next fight. But in the event that it doesn't happen, then my management will decide on getting me into a fight that'll definitely keep me active and keep me in the rankings.
All right, so we look forward to your next step, and I'm actually excited for a lot of the South African public that watch my channel to obviously learn a bit more about you as well. Having, coming from Ghana and obviously making it that side, and I almost feel like I should ask this question because I've had a lot of South African boxers, even going to Las Vegas, going to LA, going to Texas, going to New York, and trying boxing there, and it seems as though they have one or two fights, they can't get any action, and then they back home again. So I should like to ask you, what would your advice be for fighters coming from even countries outside of South Africa, just African countries in general? What is your advice in order to stick it out in the US?
Well, the thing is, if you really want it, you're gonna be have to be willing to make a lot of sacrifices. For me, being here was just out of desire. I had to give up. I didn't just come here to come here to pursue a sport. I gave a lot of things up to be here to pursue the sport. So that desire drove me to give up a lot of things. There are a lot of temptations, across board. I of course I'm married now, but you have to, because the thing about boxing, what people don't realize is there's a 3% that's making all the money, right? And everyone else that's coming up, you're essentially struggling. And it's the same as music. The music industry and boxing pretty much run the same. There are a few superstars who are making all the money, and everyone else is just like supporting the act. So until you get into that 3%, you're not making a lot of money. So for a lot of people, what makes them give up is that inability to earn. And then, but when you think about things that take away your money, right? You're talking about going out, partying, trying to maintain multiple relationships, or maybe even if you decide to have kids, nothing wrong with that, okay. But you understand that having a child or having children comes with responsibility. So sometimes that's something you have to forego. And that's something that I gave up, like, starting a family, although I am married now. And of course, I have a wife. But it's like you have to make sure that you put all of your energy towards the sport. Otherwise, it's not going to work. It's hard enough for people who have major promotions behind them to make it to the top. So imagine how much harder it is for people who don't have anybody behind them. So you have to give up a lot of what you want in life initially to get something great. So the advice I would say is you have to live almost like a monk style life attitude. You know, just focus so hard on what you want and give up a lot of pleasures now for what could happen possibly later. You know, and even that is not guaranteed. But hey,
Yeah.
it's worse if you don't try, right?
Yeah. And would you say that obviously, like, if you had stayed in Ghana and not made the trip to the USA, maybe your career wouldn't have been where it is now?
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. I understood that I had to come to the US, and that's why I said I gave up a lot. Like I had just finished college. I got a lucrative job offer with a mining company. I could have started a very promising broadcasting career in Ghana. There's so many things I don't even want to go into, and it was like it all seemed like perfectly laid out for me, and I gave up all of that because I knew that coming to the US was what I needed to be champion. There are very few people who have become champions just being in their homeland or being outside of the U.S. or Europe. You know, and that's the reality of the matter. So I knew that I had to leave, and I did. And honestly, if somebody had told me that I would have had one fight in the first 4 years of being in America, I probably wouldn't have come.
Yeah.
But
That's a hard one.
as fate would have it, my first 4 years in America, I had just one fight. And I mean, I look back and I'm like, wow, I can't believe that happened. But it was a period that gave me a lot of learning. I had a chance to be in camps with world champions who were preparing for fights. You know, I moved around, I sparred just about everybody. And everywhere I've been, I've impressed. So I know that I sparred in gyms in New York, Miami, Houston, Atlanta, yeah, Las Vegas, where else in Los Angeles, San Francisco. That's pretty much covering all of America. Maybe it's only the Northwest that I haven't really been yet. The Washington area, Washington State area, you know, Seattle, those areas. I haven't really been to those areas yet, but I've pretty much been everywhere, and it's always been domination. And like I said in my last fight, I just need the stage to prove that, you know, I have the pedigree, I have the skills, I have, you know, everything to become champion and have that target on my back. That I want the target to be on my back. So anybody in the world who wants to come can come at me.
Well, I can't wait to see you in another big fight again. And obviously, like, hopefully the South African broadcasters can do it. Otherwise, I'll have to find a link online as well to come watch
Yeah,
your fights. But thank you very much again, Sena, for
of
speaking
course. Yeah,
to me on the channel. Ah, man, I super appreciate it. And
sure.
I look forward to following your career even further.
Thank you so much. And that big fight might be sooner than you know. So thank you very much.